Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to get started here. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out today. I'm hoping all our media friends have a copy of the news release. We're going to have a short program today. Minister Denis is going to begin by giving a short statement outlining the details of today's announcement, followed by comments from Cranna, the Chair of Legal Aid Alberta, and Kevin Feth, the President of the Law Society of Alberta. And after the comments from all our speakers, we'll be taking questions. There are questions, dial-in questions today, so I'll be taking questions from the phone as well as from the floor. And with that, I'd like to invite Minister Denis to the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming today. Before I begin, I just wanted to introduce two gentlemen behind me, Cranna, as well as Kevin Feth. And I wanted to thank both of them for their leadership and establishing a positive relationship with the Alberta government on this particular issue. Clearly, working cooperatively produces positive outcomes. Promoting access to justice is an essential part of ensuring all Albertans can participate fairly in the justice system because every Albertan has this right. Legal Aid Alberta makes this happen for lower income and vulnerable Albertans by getting them help that they need in court proceedings across this province. I recently met in Banff with my federal, provincial, and territorial counterparts to discuss access to justice as well as public safety challenges in our respective regions. Once again, the growing need for greater funding commitment from the federal government in legal aid was raised, not just by myself, but all 10 provinces and 3 territories. I've been consistent on this matter, and I've indicated that I would lobby Minister Peter MacKay for the federal government to increase its funding for this joint provincial-federal responsibility. I think I can speak for all of us when I say we were disappointed that we could not get a commitment from the federal government on this very important file. But I promised that without additional federal funding and support, we would examine all possible options, and that's what we've done. Though we will continue the discussion with Ottawa and our counterparts to find ways to improve the current funding model for Alberta, it is imperative that we take action now, which we are doing today. As Premier Prentice said this past summer, we understand that we must play a part in ensuring Legal Aid Alberta has the support it needs so that low-income Albertans qualify for legal aid services. We recognize the invaluable contribution that Legal Aid Alberta makes to ensuring access to justice for everyone in this province. So today, as part of our commitment for continuing our support for legal aid, the province is providing an additional immediate funding increase of $5.5 million to legal aid for this current year of 2014-2015. The increase means that Legal Aid Alberta can now raise its financial eligibility guidelines to cover more low-income Albertans. This includes recipients of AISH, Assured Income for the Severely Handicapped, who currently do not qualify for legal aid because their income marginally exceeds the cutoff limit. My department will continue working with Legal Aid Alberta to assess their needs and appropriate level of funding for 2015-2016. Discussions will also focus on how the province and Legal Aid Alberta can work together in support of low-income and vulnerable Albertans. We will also ensure a predictable and long-term plan for the delivery of legal aid services in this province. With this announcement, our commitment to legal aid as a province is clear, as it always has been. At the same time, we will continue to work with our federal partners to encourage them to fully participate in this jointly funded federal-provincial program as well. This is part of our government's commitment to helping those most in need. Moving forward, Alberta will continue to support and advocate for legal services for all Albertans, regardless of their income or where they may be located in this province. So again, my thanks again to Derek and Kevin for establishing a positive relationship with us and being able to talk cooperatively about the needs of Legal Aid Alberta for legal aid lawyers, legal aid individuals, and the profession as a whole. Together, we can improve access to justice for all Albertans. Thank you.
My thanks to Minister Denis, and good afternoon. I'm Denis, the Chair of the Board of Directors for Legal Aid Alberta. It is an important and signal event for legal aid today to be able to proceed in the face of this funding announcement, to proceed on the basis that we wish to for some time now, which is to provide coverage for those Albertans who are in the most vulnerable positions and fulfill what we believe is our mandate to assist as many Albertans as possible in doing so. It has been a lengthy but I think productive dialogue with Minister Denis and with his staff and we are looking forward to continuing that productive dialogue as we move into the next budgetary cycle. We are certainly grateful for today's announcement and the provision of these funds. We will be in a position to modify our eligibility guidelines as a result, and in due course, once the money is administratively handled and we can take steps to deal with it operationally within legal aid, and we hope that will happen very quickly. I don't think I can overemphasize the significance of today's contribution and the assurances and remarks that Minister Denis and the Premier have made. Increasing our funding in this way to assist lower-income Albertans really does have two significant longer-term effects. The first, of course, is that under our mandate, we wish to provide as much assistance as possible to individual Albertans and provide them with the assistance they need so that they are not lost in a complex series of systems and principles that lay people do not understand. It is a matter of basic fairness, in our view, that those people receive the legal representation they require. And today's announcement will help us to do so. But more broadly, we look to the systemic efficiencies that these kinds of funds create. It is not then just about one individual who receives assistance from us, but the justice system as a whole that benefits. And we do that by providing legal representation to people in difficult circumstances across a number of complex and difficult matters. And we provide them, either through our staff counsel or through our roster counsel, an experienced advocate who understands how our system works and can assist that person through what can be a difficult court process. We do not want to see self-represented litigants struggling in our justice system. And with today's announcement of funding, we will be able to provide more of that assistance than ever and help to streamline and make efficient the justice system for all Albertans and not just those individuals we assist. This is an extremely positive first step in our relationship with the Minister and with the government on these funding issues. As we say in our media release, and we will reiterate here, it is a first step. It is a significant first step. We are looking forward to continuing our discussions with the Ministry throughout our next budget round to ensure that we can confirm the stability of this funding going forward, and we have every assurance from the Minister and the Premier that that will occur, but also to provide a longer-term and stable funding platform to ensure the fiscal health and viability of Legal Aid Alberta and the important programs and services it provides. Thank you.
It isn't every day that three lawyers gather at the courthouse and they're all in a good mood. I'm Kevin Feth, President of the Law Society of Alberta. Today's announcement is a positive first step, and the Law Society commends both Premier Prentice and Minister Denis for taking action. We also need to continue the discussion to address the ongoing crisis beyond the current year and to establish a long-term strategy for a sustainable and adequately funded legal aid program. We look forward to that dialogue as the government works towards the next provincial budget. Improving access to justice is a priority for the Law Society. Inadequate access to legal aid creates inefficiencies for the courts, puts pressure on other government services, and increases downstream costs for the Alberta government. Inadequate access also has a negative impact on the victims of crime because court proceedings are delayed and restorative justice options like restitution for the victim and resolving the root cause of the criminal behavior are not properly addressed. Inadequate access to legal aid in family matters harms innocent children because unresolved disputes between parents create hardship and uncertainty for all family members, even emotional and psychological damage that can impair their ability to move forward in their lives. Prudent investment like today's announcement enhances social justice, but also saves taxpayers money. Studies tell us that every dollar spent on legal aid actually saves more than $1 in other publicly funded systems such as healthcare, corrections, and social services. Social investment in legal aid therefore benefits a broad cross-section of Albertans while being fiscally responsible. The Law Society, therefore, values the conversation the Alberta government is having to discuss real solutions to long-standing social problems, and we look forward to continued progress.
Thanks very much to all the speakers today. Minister Denis will now take questions. I'd like you to begin with questions that relate to today's announcement, and we'll also be taking questions from the phone, as I said. So a few from the floor first, please.
Mr. Denis, there was reference during the news conference to how the situation has created inefficiencies and added costs. I was wondering if the government has any sort of handle on how much the added Robotham applications have been jamming the courts since August.
I don't have a specific number on that, but I believe there have been about 60 to 70 is the number that I had last received. These individuals would be covered though by legal aid, by the additional money that we would have. I would suggest the savings is probably negligible. That being said, I can get you some further dollars. The bottom line is that these people will have access to justice, whether they had to make a Robotham order or will be going through legal aid with the increased eligibility requirements that this additional funding will allow.
Would you say this was emergency funding? Was this an emergency?
No. I would say I've said since day one that we would take this issue to the federal government, and it wasn't just us. It was all 10 provinces, all 3 territories were of the same view. And I've indicated that if the federal government wasn't willing to step up, that we would do this. So this is basically what we've indicated we do at all times.
Is there any indication from the federal government that they might soften their stance on it?
To Minister McKay's credit, he did indicate that he was willing to keep a dialogue going. However, talk is cheap, and legal aid needs services now. I would be much happier if the federal government would step up to the table, but if they don't, we will, and we have.
We do have one question on the phone. Sorry, we'll take the question from the phones, please.
The first question on the phone is from Alex McQuaig from Medicine Hat News. Your line is open.
Hello, Minister. Will these funds, this $5.5 million, go to services based outside of Calgary and Edmonton, such as Medicine Hat?
Do you have any comment on that?
It's Derek Cranna here in response. The funding will be used province-wide to assist applicants from anywhere in the province, not just the major metro centres.
And the reason that I passed this to Derek is because Legal Aid is a self-governing organization, and I didn't want to speak on its behalf about its operation.
Well, will it go to opening up or reopenings any of the offices, such as Medicine Hat, Peace River, Fort McMurray?
At this time, we're not in a fiscal position to be able to look at reopening offices. We have closed the operations that we have in order to achieve the efficiencies we need, not only for this year, but going forward, and a greater emphasis on the telephone contacts that we have with the vast majority of our clients.
And I have to give Legal Aid credit for wanting to streamline its operations over the past year.
Minister, in a practical sense, what can you do to get the federal government to change its mind? I understand there's been consistent and significant lobbying from your government and from your counterparts in the provinces and territories. Is there anything in your mind that you can do differently going forward to try and get the federal government to change its mind?
We're going to keep bringing this up at our national justice ministers meetings. This is not something that we will let slide. Beyond that, there is no legal recourse that we can get from the federal government, if that's what you were asking. This will continue to come up at every justice ministers meeting, again with support from all the provinces and territories. We are disappointed. We would like to see we realize the federal government has financial challenges, so do we, but this is a joint federal-provincial funding program. We'd like to see the federal government step up to the plate, and we'll keep at it.
Isn't there a concern that the feds will look at this and say, well, if Alberta's willing to pay, then we won't have to?
Well, the reality is that costs escalate. Costs are going to keep increasing, particularly in this province when we have a population increase of 100,000 people per year. And we will keep moving to the feds and asking them to help cover some of these increased costs. The federal government's contribution has remained flat for almost 10 years. It's not acceptable.
How did you come up to 5.5? How did you come up with that figure?
That was the figure that was necessary to increase the eligibility requirement above AISH levels. We feel that people who are on assured income for severely handicapped services should have eligibility to legal aid. Did you have any comments on that?
15,000 though is still pretty. People making $15,000 are still not making a lot of money.
I've never suggested otherwise, but there does have to be a cutoff at some point. This will help those who are absolutely most in need throughout this entire province.
Any idea how many people that would involve?
We're not in a position to provide a precise number at this point in time. I think it would be fairest to say that for this calendar year, a rough estimate would exceed 5,000 individuals who would be now eligible for funding, or representation by virtue of the additional funding.
And we're also open to further discussions in other budget years. Of course, the next budget hasn't yet been announced.
Will this be a base now, though? I mean, will this 5.5 be available next year?
That would be my intention, but again, the next budget has not yet been announced, and we will have to see when Minister Campbell tables it, but that is definitely my intention.
Last question?
How much would legal aid need for the next years? Because you were talking about a $15 million deficit in 3 years if there was no additional funding. So do you need those $5 million every year and more?
Well, we'll take any dollars that we can get. I think, though, to your question, we have not yet worked out what the impacts for the next following fiscal years will be as a result of today's announcement. It's been a bit too quick for us to run the numbers to see what it will look like in future years, but those are the discussions that we will be having with the minister to see what fiscal 15-16 and onwards will look like.
Thanks very much, everyone.